So without further ado, our first speaker is John Hausfeld from Baker Concrete. The title of his talk is Concrete Construction Practices That Meets Current Development Needs Without Compromising the Future. John started as a field engineer for Baker Concrete Construction. He has since worked for Baker as a project engineering coordinator, a project manager, operations manager, and is currently serving as director of quality. Early in his career, John was involved with implementation of several quality processes that eventually became the Baker job management process. That served Baker well for many years. In 2008, in response to projects in the nuclear market, John was assigned as the director of quality. Since then, John has led the development and implementation of both general and site-specific quality programs, and he's passionate about continuous improvement, collaborating with others to document practices, and implementation of the Baker Opportunities for Improvement program. John is actively involved on the Strategic Development Council Board, the Construction Industry Institute, Nuclear Industry Assessment Corporation, and the American Concrete Institute Committees 121, 301, and E703. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to John.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll go ahead and get into my presentation. We started working on a formal sustainability program in 2008, about the same time that our backlog of work was beginning to wane as the construction industry began its downhill spiral. We quickly learned that sustainability is, in fact, about being sustained. In other words, working smarter, reducing waste, consuming less, reducing rework and recycling. They all helped the environment at the same time they helped our company. By the nature of our business, designer construction companies create the built environment. The manner in which we do this affects the broader physical, social, and economic environment. We defined our role as meeting current development needs without compromising the future. Hence the title of this presentation. In this presentation, I'll provide information about what contractors could do to advance sustainability. We were founded in 1968, so we celebrated our 50th anniversary in 2018. From humble roots, grown to become the largest specialty concrete contractor in the U.S. It's been an honor and responsibility to be near the top of that list since the late 1980s. There are three basic principles that define what sustainability means to us. First, a well-run business is good for the environment. Second, our business must be engaged in our communities. And third, our business must promote economic prosperity for our business itself, co-workers, partners, and the community. The sustainability model includes three realms: environmental stewardship, or caring for the earth; social responsibility, caring for our communities; and economic prosperity, financially sustaining our business, co-workers, partners, and communities. The topics on this slide may sound like blue sky ideas, something you might read on a glossy 10K report, but these are the 5 policies that drive sustainability for us. The remainder of my presentation will focus on converting these blue sky ideas into practice. While we still have much to do, we're working on each of these areas. Now, an overview of the top 5 priorities. First, using labor, material, and equipment resources wisely. Second, reducing operational rework and waste through improved planning, BIM implementation, implementing opportunities for improvement, documenting improvement of practices, and implementing lean. All the operational things. Third, being mindful of source materials use, energy, concrete, rebar, wood, other resources. Fourth, implementing site environmental control plans that include stormwater pollution prevention, concrete washout plans, equipment product VOC emissions controls, spill protection, and in sensitive areas, endangered species and archaeological controls. And finally, we're not measured by only our structures that we build, but also in the impact on our communities. The first priority considers consumption. If we consume less, we help the business and the environment. By example, installing LED lights and moisture switches in our warehouses and offices has greatly reduced the energy that we use and our cost. Another example sending concrete back to plants is not good for the environment or our bottom line. In 2018, 350 million cubic yards of concrete were produced in the U.S. It's estimated that 5% was either wasted or returned to the plant. This waste constitutes 17.5 million cubic yards of concrete, 8 billion pounds of cement, and approximately 4 million tons of CO2 generated from the production of cement alone. Second, a Colorado Ready Mix Association study determined that initial curing of cylinders was performed properly only on half project sites. Improperly cured cylinders can lead to 20% strength reduction in test results. Considering the same 350 million cubic yards of concrete and improper curing of cylinders leading to reduced strength, another 28 billion pounds of cement are needed and 14 million tons of CO2 generated from cement production. The third example, projects are driven by schedule and in some cases overly conservative prescriptive specifications. Again, if we take the 350 million cubic yards of concrete, add 70 pounds of cement to each yard, that's 24.5 billion pounds of cement and 12.5 million tons of CO2 produced. Hypothetically, we could reduce CO2 emissions by 20 to 30 million tons annually by controlling waste, curing cylinders correctly, and reducing excess cement content in mixes. Putting it in perspective, not to be deflating, but annual CO2 emissions in the U.S. is approximately 5 billion tons compared to the 20 or 30 million tons that could be reduced as shown on the previous slide. With that said, it all adds up. We have to start somewhere. Current CO2 emissions levels are truly death by a thousand cuts, and every act of green supports reduction. While using cleaner fuels has been challenging in some circumstances, it's easy to implement turn it off when you're not using it. How many times have we walked by a generator running with no one on the end of the power cord or observed lights burning with no one in sight? It's not good for our business or the environment. We found ways to use eco-friendly fuels and reduce consumption, but the biggest impact has probably been from regionalizing our offices. Bigger regional offices reduce energy use and emissions from travel and shipping. Regionalization improves lives, reduces costs, reduces the impact on the environment, and positively impacts the communities that we serve. We still go to where the work is, while regional offices support better service to our clients and communities and reduction in transportation impacts. A second priority considers operational quality and productivity, doing things right the first time. Elements of operational quality and productivity include planning, BIM implementation, opportunities for improvement, best practice documentation implementation, and lean implementation. I'll go through each of those. So Baker implements four phases of project execution from early conceptual design to construction execution. On a recent project that was fully designed by a developer, we supported redesign that cut $3 million out of the cost of a $28 million concrete project. Building smart is good for the environment. Implementation models are used to identify errors, clashes, and assist with visualization, planning, and documentation of as-built conditions. Having pre-placement as-builts prior to placement greatly reduces rework and impacts on the environment. Baker leverages mobility apps and enterprise content management software to reduce rework. These mobility apps are used for, one, connecting frontline coworkers with iPhones and iPads, processing event reports, trending those event reports, determining needs for corrective actions, and finally documenting and improving practices. The OFI process supports both event reporting and trending and idea management. It's used each month to evaluate needs for practice improvement. Each month we implement or revise 2 to 3 of our construction practices. This is the end game of the OFI process. Improved practices lead to a better run business that reduces impacts on the environment. What CII refers to as activity analysis includes review, analysis, and continuous improvement of everyday activities and processes as needed to reduce waste. Implementation of lean construction techniques greatly reduces waste on our projects. Shuffling dog-eared pieces of paper is still alive, but on many projects, we're implementing more advanced tools to manage documentation. On one nuclear project, over 2 million pages of records were processed electronically. The third priority is reducing waste and recycling. We support this through our internal programs by working with client programs to recycle many things, including rainwater. Recycled content in the supply chain reduces environmental impacts. In the Cincinnati region, much of the rebar that we use comes from recycled railcar axles. We also use recycled concrete in several markets. Of course, the use of fly ash and alternative cementous materials are good for the environment. The use of ACMs reduces the amount of CO2 produced, in many cases improves durability. Fourth priority is control of environmental impacts. This is managed through our contribution to the built environment, providing durable and resilient products through project approaches and product selection, and finally through implementation of site-specific quality control plans and environmental control plans. We've been fortunate to participate in several clean energy projects: solar, wind, hydroelectric. We also have built several combined cycle gas turbine power plants. These plants balance financial and environmental considerations. I think they're a good example of the three-legged stool that Larry mentioned. They're economically viable, and they're much better for the environment than burning coal. They're not talked about a lot about in political circles because they're in that middle. Possibly one of the biggest benefits of concrete is resilience of the product, resisting fire, wind, storm surge, and earthquakes. The Pantheon's one of my favorite examples, still standing after almost 2,000 years. Did you know that it burnt down twice before being built from concrete in 126 AD? Several of the materials and choosing repair over replacement and benefits the environment. These photos are of a garbage plant tipping floor and pervious pavement at the Baker offices. So the materials we select and the methods that we choose to approach projects can reduce our impact on the environment. Formal implementation of environmental control plans for projects support reducing impact. This slide provides a basic outline of what one of our project environmental protection plans might look like. The fifth priority relates to coworkers and community. Baker's a large organization, but still a family business. This is evident in the way that we support coworkers, communities, and industry associations. For our coworkers, first and foremost, it's a safe place to work. In addition, recognition of service awards, birthdays, wellness programs, and benefits reinforce our commitment to the coworker. Mr. Baker does not have any employees, and he'll quickly correct you if you address our workforce as anything other than coworkers. For our communities, we're very involved in many nonprofit organizations: Make-A-Wish, Salvation Army, Boy Scouts, many others. Participation in industry association helps raise the water for all of our boats and drives a more efficient industry that's good for the environment and for society in general. Interestingly, all sustainable acts of green addressed in this slide deck require investment in time, talent, and treasure, but they also reduce cost. With a very low cost, the return on investment is very quick. In summary, think globally, act locally. A well-run business is good for the environment. We are co-workers, partners, and community focused. Those are sort of it's really kind of a common sense approach to being efficient and being a good community citizen. That's what our sustainability program is about.